This video is part of a series helping you to develop effective revision techniques as you prepare for your exams. Today we're looking at how to use past papers as part of your revision. Particularly if you're preparing for national public exams like GCSEs and IB and A-level, using past paper questions is a crucial part of your preparation. Looking at questions that have come up in the past and what the mark scheme said in response is going to ensure that you don't end up in a situation where you think you've answered the question really well, but you've missed out key details that matter to the exam board. Doing this also allows you to identify mistakes in your exam technique and rectify them. Things like not knowing what a command word means or not fully satisfying the marking rubric. Particularly if you're using the whole past paper in one go, this is also a good way to improve your timekeeping, so you actually know how long you can give yourself for each part of the exam and how it feels to answer the questions within that time frame. Finally, if you've sat past papers at home and you know that you've successfully tackled them, then your mocks and your final exams will be far less stressful, and that can help you to perform better even without you knowing any more facts. Unlike most of the other revision techniques we've discussed, for past paper questions you need to actually go out there and find them. So the best place to get past paper questions from is going to be your exam board website. So hopefully you know whether your exams are being set by AQA or Edexcel or OCR or by WJEC, and so you can go to that exam board's website and you can find your particular exam. Now, the advantage of this is that those are going to be the most up-to-date questions for the current specification that's being assessed right now, and it does give you access to whole papers. But the disadvantage is that there are a limited number of questions there. So the new GCSEs were examined for the first time in 2018 or the year before for English and Maths, and so that's not many past papers that you can go through, and you might find that you just run out. There are also lots of summary websites, so Physics and Maths Tutor is a really good one, not just for physics and maths, they've now branched out into lots of other subjects, and there's an advantage there that there are some additional questions, and those have often been taken from older specifications but where the same content is still being examined. But the disadvantage is that you may find things there that are now out of date and maybe are not in your current GCSE or A-level, so you need to be a little bit careful with those. Finally, there are a number of other websites that have written their own sort of mock past papers. So again, it's useful to have that additional resource, but you need to be aware that those haven't been written by the exam board and they haven't been quality controlled. So it could be that somebody else says that a particular answer would receive a mark. And although there's a very good chance that they're an experienced teacher and that they are pretty much on the money, it's not as accurate as using the exam board's own exams and own mark schemes. As we've said, past paper questions are a limited resource, so these shouldn't be something that you're using in the very early days of your revision. Make sure that you've done some summary work like mind maps or flashcards before you get to this point. In the very early days of using past paper questions, you want to be looking at a single topic at a time. There's no point wasting one of the few whole papers when you're not yet ready. So when you do start using individual questions, firstly, make sure you're giving yourself the correct amount of time and actually writing down an answer. Don't just have a read and then look at the mark scheme. When you do then look at the mark scheme, you want to clearly indicate which parts of your answer achieved credit and then also write down the things that you missed out. By doing this in a different colour, you've got a very clear indication the next time that you look back at this topic, which parts you need to prioritise in your revision. Focusing on individual questions rather than whole papers to begin with also allows you to spend a little bit more time and tighten up your exam technique. One really important thing is to make sure that you understand what all the command words mean. So for instance, in AQA GCSE Science, any time that you see the command word evaluate, you can't receive full marks unless you include what they call a strongly justified conclusion. So when you're just doing individual questions, you can take the time to annotate all these command words and say it's really important that you're comparing the data and that you're writing a conclusion. It's also a good idea to do things like identifying what the keywords in the question are and highlighting those and thinking about what they might mean, and also just bullet pointing some keywords that you're going to use in your question so that when you go back after you've written your answer, you can say, did I actually include all of these things? Have I covered all of my bases? The other thing that you can do when you're doing individual questions and you're not doing it under timed conditions is you can think about over answering and then annotate your answer to see where you think you're going to get the marks. So for any kind of extended response question, whether that's these ones in science or whether it's an essay in English or history, there are far more things that you could say in answer to that question than you actually need to put down to get full marks. So it's a good idea in the early days of you using these exam questions to write everything you want to write and then go through and say, where do you think you might have picked up marks? Because that partly allows you to trim down your answer and remove extraneous information that you didn't actually need to include, so that next time you can do this a bit quicker because you're not adding in a load of extra detail. But also it allows you to check how well versed are you in how the mark schemes work, and do you actually understand what is and isn't going to give you credit. Realistically, there's very little point in you starting to tackle full exam papers until maybe a month before your mock exams at the earliest. You want to make sure that you have individually revised all of the topics as thoroughly as you can before you start getting into exam technique and timekeeping and that sort of thing. So then once you are using those full-length papers, as we say, you have a limited number, so you really want to make the most of them. So the first thing that you're going to do is to sit yourself a proper mock exam. So you need to do this under timed conditions with your phone away in a different room, tell your family that you're not available for the next 75 minutes and do it like you're going to do it for real, because otherwise you're just not getting a realistic idea of what it's going to be like. Now, the second step is that you get a different coloured pen, and assuming that you haven't quite finished, you've run out of time, which is a really normal thing to happen when you're first trying out full-length papers, you want to go through and see what else could you have answered if you just had a little bit more time. And this is going to help you to assess, do you need to be quicker, do you need to tackle the paper in a different order, those kinds of things. Then you take a third colour and this time you go through and use your notes. So what are the things that you do understand but you forgot under pressure? Or what are the things that you know where to find that information but you haven't thoroughly revised it yet? Because those are the things that you really want to prioritise now when you're using your flashcards or using your mind maps or your other revision techniques. And then finally, you can use your fourth colour to actually go through and mark it. So at the end of this, you're going to know, this is what I would have got if today was exam day. This is what I would have got if I had unlimited time and if my exam technique was a little bit better. And this is what I would have got if I'd revised everything as well as I possibly could have done. So by going through those various steps, you're going to make the most effective use possible of that full exam paper. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope that you're now feeling a bit more confident about when it's a good idea to use past paper questions and how you can get the most out of using them. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more revision videos coming soon.